Hi.
Hey,
Hi, how are you? I like your background. What is that?
uh, I think it's the fall of Rome.
Okay. Something.
How
Okay.
are you, Jamie?
I'm good. So I saw the movie. I enjoyed it. Very, very sad. But I cried a lot, but it was really good. I enjoyed it.
Oh, good, thank you.
How can you talk about just how did that happen? How did you get involved in that?
Well, I, uh, I mean, the honest truth is, work for me in Hollywood has basically evaporated. I'm an old, straight, white male, and it was looking bad. I actually applied to LAPD just before the riots happened a couple of years ago, and went down and went through all the physical training and stuff like that, I'm 22 years clean and sober, and they asked me about had I ever done drugs? And I said yes, from 1981 till 1999. So they decided that I wasn't a good candidate, which is fine. They have every right to do that. And then like a couple days later, the riots started. So maybe in hindsight, it
Yeah.
was kind of a blessing. And I was struggling to come to grips with what I was going to do with my life and my career. And I, sorry, the cat. I
That's
had
okay.
become, I've become good friends with Dean Cain from going to conventions and stuff like that. And I knew he was doing faith-based films, and so I reached out to him and said, if you guys need anybody, I'm here. And initially I reached out because I needed to get paid. I needed to provide for my family, but it's been a little more transformative for me, a little more important than just collecting a paycheck at this point.
Yeah. I remember when you posted that online, and I thought that makes no sense because the fact that what happened in your past is past, and that should have nothing to do with anything. I mean, that, in my opinion, makes you, better at a job like that because you lived your life.
That's kind of that's kind of the way I have a friend who's a federal court judge, and she said, it could have been because you're an old man, but they can't really say that because then they could
Precisely.
get hit with an age discrimination lawsuit. But yeah, I kind of felt the same way. What better way to help young people that are struggling with drugs and alcohol in certain situations than someone who's kind of been there and done it themselves and come out
Yeah.
the other side? So
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. So with this film, did you meet the family that it's based on? Because I know it's based on obviously a real boy this happened to. Did you talk to them
I
before?
did. The dad, the character I play in the film, Rick Newman, I spent every day with him for almost 3 weeks, and his son Bryson, was there also. He's actually in the film, he's in a few scenes back in the background.
Oh,
So
cool.
yeah, I mean, this isn't, it's not one of those things where they say based on actual events, and then it's like there's one
Tiny
tiny part
bit.
that's
Yeah.
the actual event. No, this is a real thing, and it really happened the way that it did. And you know, you can decide for yourself why things happened the way they did. You can say it was a coincidence. You can say whatever you decide, whether it's the power of prayer or a coincidence. And that's the thing about the film. It has a religious component, but it doesn't beat you over the head with
Right.
its religiosity. It doesn't preach to you. I mean, Bryce was a kid who or is a kid who he has strong beliefs, and he said prayers, and people around him said prayers and believed, and so we just told the story.
Mhm. was it, is it, and obviously this is the first time you've directed, but is it harder sort of, I guess, telling a story knowing that to some extent you need to be, I don't want to say sensitive necessarily, but obviously it's about a real person, you don't want to do anything that doesn't put them in a good light or that they don't like the way it turns out. How is that like dealing with that aspect of it? Did you?
Well, like I said, Rick was with me every day, all day. I mean, he was like um, right there, and if something didn't feel right to him or whatever, he had no problem
Yeah.
letting me know, and that was fine. He and I got along great. He loves his son, and so it wasn't something that I really worried about too
Right.
much.
And as I said, this is the first time you've directed, though. I mean, how was that for you? Obviously, that's a big departure from acting. Do you enjoy? I mean, do you enjoy that a lot now?
Yeah, back before I decided to try acting, I was a PA.
Oh,
So, and I wanted to get into camera. I thought, I thought that I wanted to direct. I've always been interested in camera moves and shots and how you can tell a story with a shot without words and
mhm.
stuff like that. So I felt, and I had a really good crew. My DP was awesome, and we communicated really well. And I mean, we didn't have a whole lot of time to do specialty shots. I mean, we pretty much did a master and then coverage, and then if we had some extra time, we'd move the camera around and do some stuff because we made this film in 2 weeks,
Oh, wow. Wow.
and 14 15-hour days for 2 weeks straight.
Wow.
But the best part for me was working with actors. I've also been teaching some acting classes, and I love it. I love I love being able to just say, okay, what if we think about it this way? Or, what if you know, for people that have never acted, if you're playing in a scene where, someone that you love is dying, but you've never had anyone die in your real life, it's harder to
Yeah.
access that,
Yeah.
So, the premise of the way I was taught by Ivana Chubbuck is we substitute something as painful as we can in, like, that's happened in our life, the most painful thing that we can remember, and we think about that, and we access that, and then we replace it
Mhm.
with the words. And that's kind of, as an actor, I was telling someone else, I was like, all the stuff that you've gone through in your life, all the painful things that you ask yourself, what purpose did this serve? Like,
Mhm.
what good will come of this pain that I've had? And as an actor, it gives you the ability to, like, really experience your previous grief and pain, if that's what it calls for. And at the same time, I think that's really therapeutic. I think it's a good way to. So, yeah, actors are really just getting free therapy sessions when they're in circumstances like that.
Is this something then that you think you want to continue towards the directing side, or is it just kind of depend what comes your way? Or
I mean, I definitely would love to do it again. So if I'm asked to do it again, I will jump at the opportunity. I still like acting, I it's I'm not in the Hollywood system right now for whatever reason. The last job I had was on Mighty Ducks, and that was 2 years ago. So, I'm acting in these films, and I'm not getting paid as much. And I mean, I've never worried about being a big star. That was not why I got into acting. I just wanted to be. I grew up wanting to be the best at whatever I
Hmm.
I was doing. Most of it was sports back then, but it's just the way I was raised, and I wanted to be the best. And if I can't be the best in Hollywood, then I'll be the best, or strive to be the best somewhere else, which is what I'm doing.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say you still affect people regardless, and it's kind of
Thank
I think with your job it's fickle. You never know,
Yeah,
where it's gonna go. You just don't.
hey, rolling the dice every
Mhm.
time. So
So, what was the hardest part though about directing this? And also the other thing I was going to ask is, do you think that it made it harder when you're also in it because you were acting and directing at the same time for part of it?
yeah, I mean, I would say that it was, but I never felt like, oh, this is too hard, it's too much. I was really into it. I was really, because initially when Jason Campbell, who runs JC Films, when he asked me to direct, he was like, look, Eddie, all you really have to do, all I really need from you is to work with the new actors. But the DP will do all the rest. And so I just came in and was kind of like, okay, it felt like it didn't it was hollow. It felt hollow. And then the DP, like on day two, the DP and I and Jason had a meeting, and the DP was like, look, I'm overwhelmed. I need more help. And I was like, oh, and I was like, oh, so is it okay if I start blocking scenes? And Jason was like, whatever you got to do. So then all of a sudden I was like, before the scene, I was blocking all the scenes, I was blocking all the movements, and like where the camera would be. And I became much more, I mean, I've always kind of been into, I always like little puzzles and stuff like that. And so it was like putting together a puzzle. And it was challenging, but I really enjoyed it. It's the most fun that I've had in the business in since Warehouse 13.
Well, that's good. It's good if you enjoy what you're doing, at least. That's kind of the important thing, I guess.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite scene in the film?
Wow. Yeah, I think there's a scene where Rick is taking his son down the hallway in the wheelchair, and I I don't even think that was, we basically made that up on the spot. And I did some things creatively in regard to the blocking. I mean, I guess that's the scene that I was able to be the most creative in. Also, there's a scene where the guys are out, the football team's out lifting weights, and his buddy gets the text from Rick, and that scene was completely made up on the fly. We were supposed to have, I mean, this is a perfect example of, we had to improvise, adapt, and overcome. First of all, the budget, it was, I mean, we shot this for no money. And so we were supposed to have 60 kids show up for the two football teams. And of the 60, 10 showed up.
Oh, wow.
And then they all had agreed to shave their heads. And of the 10 that showed, only 5 agreed to shave their heads. So again, when we got to the ambulance scene, um, you know, I tried to cheat it so that it, like the audience didn't go, wait a minute, they didn't all shave their heads, because I can see, I made it so that the guys toward the front, when they took off their helmets, they all had their heads shaved. The other guys were kind of back in the back or over on the field and stuff like that. And so again, that was kind of something that we even came up with most of the dialogue just on the fly. And again, thanks to Jason Campbell, who, uh, he's not all, persnickety about his writing, as long as the story gets told in a proper way.
Yeah, well, I didn't notice. I mean, I was probably busy crying at that point from it,
Yeah.
from that scene, but I didn't notice, so that works.
Oh, well, gosh, that's great. I mean, I love to hear that it gave you some emotional impact. I
Yeah,
mean, that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to make a movie about that's gonna, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's gonna make you feel all kinds of emotions. But at the end of the day, we wanted to give people some hope, in what feels like our climate today. A lot of people don't have a lot of hope,
yeah.
that things feel hopeless. And I mean, let's make a movie where, people are challenged, they're challenged by life, but because they have hope, they're able to come out the other side.
Mhm.
So, you know, it's to me it was a no-brainer. It was a great message,
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely emotional, and it's very sad, but I mean, it's happy too. Obviously, it's both.
Right.
So, all right. Well, I do want to at least talk a little bit about Warehouse 13 before we go. So
Yeah.
the first thing I want to ask you is, I'm not sure because I'm just kind of seeing social media posts. Has there been talk about doing some kind of reboot, or is it more just like everybody wants it? I mean, has there been talk at SciFi, or do you not know?
There, Jack Kenny and Mark Stern. You remember Mark?
Yeah. Yep.
He was
Well,
head of current programming at that time at
mhm.
SciFi. He was one of the big top dogs
Yeah.
there. Jack told me, he goes, we want to pitch a, a renewal. Same characters, same actors, still called Warehouse 13. I suppose they had, because of COVID, the warehouse never really transferred properly to China because of
That makes sense.
they would come up with something
Yeah.
brilliant and ridiculous. So, in true Hollywood form, there was someone reached out to a friend, and the friend was like, I'll run it up the flagpole and get back to you. And they never got back to him. And it's very Hollywood is very you're my best friend, until I don't need you anymore, and then
Yeah.
I'll call you when I need you. And I mean, it is what it is. I think I mean, this is the only business I've ever been in, so I don't know about other
Yeah,
businesses,
it's
but
hard to tell.
it's kind of like life, I guess. But yeah, it's a shame. I was they had storylines and everything. So I mean, it could still happen. But as of right now, the I think they were trying to pitch it to what is like NBC Plus or whatever it is, or
Peacock, probably. Yeah.
Peacock, yeah, yeah. And yeah, the guy never got back to Mark. So
Fingers. Yeah, I was gonna ask, is it something that like they can like pitch to Netflix and things too, or do they own the rights to it that they can't do that?
not really. It belongs to NBC Universal, which is why Peacock was the perfect
Yeah, that's what I figured.
perfect
Yeah,
match.
kind of sense. I just know that when Warehouse came on, that was kind of when sci-fi became, I don't know, at least to me, was like big sci-fi, and then it kind of never had anything like that again. And then there's
Yeah,
a
it
lot
kind
of
of went
wrestling
back
and
to
a lot of
being
other
all.
stuff after that.
Yeah, it went
Not really
back to
sci-fi.
being very serious, overly serious. And although there's the Alan Tudyk show, that
Oh
Alan
yeah,
Tudyk show
Resident Alien. I love
is
that.
Resident Alien. He's fantastic.
Yeah.
So, I mean, gosh, Warehouse 13 would be a great fit with that
It
show.
would. I
Yeah.
definitely think it would be. So what do you think Pete's up to right now? Where's his head at?
Gosh, gosh. I had I was going to pitch a storyline to Jack that because of the fact that, you remember, Pete said, who am I without, I'm nothing without the warehouse, and Micah was like, you are. And so of course they got together, but and then the isolation of COVID, Pete started drinking again.
Oh.
And he was lying to Micah, and he finally left, and Micah hadn't seen him for a while. And I wrote this whole thing, and yeah, I don't know, I probably, maybe spoilers, but not that it would ever get made that way, but I thought that would be an interesting way to, once again, you start off with something very serious in regard to Pete, and then it gives him permission to be a goofball for the rest of the time.
Yeah, I know.
Which is what his alcoholism really, I thought, did for it. It kept him grounded in reality when he was, licking the Farnsworth and pushing all the buttons and eating all the cookies. There was a reason why he was that way.
Yeah. I don't know. I have a lot of fond memories too. I still keep thinking, because I don't think it's in, I don't even know if the scene's in the episode, but I still remember, one of the things I remember was on the finale when I was there, we were in it was sort of like a library, I guess. I want to say there was books on the shelves. I remember that. And you were like riffing all these fudge lines that you were making up and going, I don't think the scene even ended up in the finale, or at least it was different if it did.
Oh, I must have been really good then.
Well, I was sitting there behind with JP Nichols. I was
JP, the writer.
Yeah, because I was sitting back there with him and watching you, and I just remember that. That's what I remember.
He's great. He wrote some great episodes. Yeah, you were one of the very first interviews I did for Warehouse 13.
Oh wow, really cool.
It was pretty cool. I remember we sat at some corner table somewhere and talked.
Yeah, I was there a couple times. I was there, I want to say twice for the press tour, and then when I went down to the set. So
yeah.
I say, yeah, that was very cool. Yeah, maybe I'll see you at a set for something else at some point.
Well, I really appreciate you reaching out to me, and it's you're a touchstone for me. Like I said, you were one of the first people that ever interviewed me. So I appreciate you reaching out, and I apologize for
don't worry about it.
Flaking on you today.
That's okay. Well, have a good, I guess it's earlier there. That's why I said it's 11 here.
Yeah, 8 o'clock. Yeah, so tomorrow we go down to San Diego, and then Saturday morning I'm doing interviews all morning, and then the premiere is Saturday at I think it starts at 4:30 or 5 or something. So
is it just going to be at theaters there, or is it eventually coming everywhere, or?
I don't know. It's going to be up to the owners of the film to if they find a distributor, and
you never know. I figure usually if it goes to theaters, it's not around here. So
yeah, I don't know, but it'll be somewhere. Darn it.
Yep, somewhere, hopefully. Well, if not, hey, there's digital now, right? Everybody can watch it that way. There's always that. Yeah. All right. Well, have a good night and have a good time at your premiere. I'll get some semblance of an edit.
Thank you, Jane.
Before Saturday, sure.
I appreciate you, and I'll shoot it out when I get it.
Yep. All right. Have a good night.
Take care.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.